Everybody hear my dog barking? Or is my
That's your
microphone
dog.
hiding that pretty well?
Oh no, we can hear him. We can understand everything he says.
Yeah,
He's got
yeah,
all the questions.
yeah. Our caretaker showed up, so. All right, well, let's get this thing started. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Digital Forum for January 2022. This is a group that meets the fourth Saturday of the month and talks about anything and everything that's photography, video, anything to do with cameras, equipment, how to do things. Our second hour today is going to be on websites and how to present your images on your website. And we're going to show a bunch of different sites and show the back end of it so you can see how easy it is to do some of this stuff. So that will be the second hour. The first hour, we're looking for questions. So far, we don't have any questions in the Q&A. It'd be great if you start putting some stuff in there. And we'll be glad to answer those.
Ellen Hanrahan, I guess, jumped out, so she wants to know how she rejoins. So I'm not sure if she's.
She should be able to. Well, she wants to jump back in. I'll promote her again.
Okay.
Usually, when you jump out and jump back in, she can come back as a panelist right away. But so
there it is.
So with that,
Thanks.
we'll get started. No problem, Ellen. I don't know why
had a
you
little.
Yeah.
It wouldn't allow me to join with any video or chatting, so I didn't. But apparently, you can still see me. So now, shut up. Okay.
Actually, your video isn't on yet, but your audio is.
Audio's working fine.
There's your video.
You'd think there'd be a lot of questions about all the stuff that they got for Christmas that's broke already.
Yeah. So I'm surprised. Well, anybody in the panel have some questions? Otherwise, I've got a list of stuff I can talk about. But
well, I was going to say that I'm broke after Christmas, and I don't know where my money went.
Yep. So.
All right, Jeff. There's a question in the Q&A for you. That's a can of worms. That's a can of worms you can open up.
How many use color calibrators? Is it important? And how much do they cost? By Ron Wolfel. Yeah, I calibrate about once every month or two. I use the iPhoto by, now it's owned by Calibrate. I think it's about $150, $200 calibrator that just goes on your screen and sets the colors so that you know the colors that you can that you see on your screen is what's going to be right for when you send it to a lab. Otherwise, the cheapest way to check it is to send it to your phone, and you can see on your phone or your iPad, those colors are pretty good all by themselves. So you can do that. Ken, I know you heard from Matt Klaskowski that he doesn't color calibrate anymore.
No, I don't know if he just, he didn't really go into detail on it. He just had, he ran kind of a special 3-week get started with 2022 program. And he mentioned some of the things that he doesn't worry about anymore. And one of them had to do with color calibration. And so, I mean, I found that one kind of interesting, but I'm wondering if, you know, I think most monitors may not have too much of a problem with color, but I know for me, it's the brightness that's always a factor, because when I print my prints, usually they're somewhat a little bit darker than what the screen is, and that has to do with the brightness. And so So I try to work on that quite a bit to try to get my monitor to be fairly close to what I'm actually printing.
It also depends on what you're talking about calibrating. I calibrate my monitors, but I also calibrate my printer. I use X-Rite devices to do that.
Yeah. And it looks like, Hubert, you're showing what, the Data Color Spider?
Yes, I am. I just
Okay.
got a new BenQ monitor.
Oh,
And
okay.
And I used this one. Of course, I didn't do much of an adjustment, in my opinion, but because I think the monitor was already pretty well set. But it seemed like it works pretty good. I've done some printing since then, and it comes out fairly close. You're never going to get it exactly to print out. I print out on an Epson printer, small one.
Yeah.
And it's never going to be exactly because of the different media, but it's enough to tell me that when I see it on the screen, it's going to come out pretty close to what I see on the screen as far as the darkness and the lightness stuff.
Right.
The colors.
Yeah. That's the important part. And it's even more important if you're having a lab print for you, because then what they see on their screen should be what's on your screen. So it's worth color calibrating, either using the Spider or the X-Rite, or what used to be the X-Rite. Now it's called the Calibrate system. Is it?
Yeah, I used Canvas Pro as the only outside printer that I use because I don't print Canvas. And those things come back pretty, I mean, when I put it up on the screen and when I get the print back from them, they come out darn right. Really, I don't think I could get them any closer.
Yeah.
But here's my question for you, Steve, on that is, from that Canvas place that you're getting them printed at, did they send you a target that you're matching to their printers or their screens?
No, I just send them my file.
Right. So then what you're getting then is they're calling the color for you, and regardless of what your screen is going to get, you should get good color. So
right.
This is the thing about color calibrations and printing. If you're going to calibrate your screen, it needs to calibrate to an output source. To calibrate a screen just for the sake of calibrating the screen means nothing. If you're gonna, like, if I was going to use Bay Photo and I'm going to use their service where they'll send me a target, I can calibrate my screen to their monitors, and then I should be getting exactly what I send them as being correct. The other way that most labs do is you send them an image and they're going to do lab color. They're going to print them to where, you know, their history says, okay, this is where things should be. And regardless of whether my screen is calibrated them or not, I'm going to get the results that I need if you have a good lab that you're working with.
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
My experience, most labs will ask you, do you want to have them color calibrate, or do you want them to just print it the way you see it?
Exactly, Brian. So in the way that, you know, if you're gonna use it off of your screen, then yeah, it's important to color calibrate, but it's important to color calibrate to their specifications.
Yeah. Well, I color calibrate it, so when I see it, this is what I expect when I print it, or close to it, of course. And then, of course, when I send it off to someone like that, I do Canvas Pro. You know, I don't know what they do. In other words, they send me back a shot of what it's going to look like when it, from their perspective, and it matches my screen quite well. So I'm just, you know, and of course, then when I get the product, it's really close. So I'm happy with whatever they're doing. I have no idea, but.
Right, but it has. I'm telling you, it doesn't have anything to do with you calibrating your monitor. They're going to send you a good result, regardless, because obviously they don't want to be sending you something that is way off in color and everything. They know, but unless you're matching your screen to their screens, that's just a happenstance that you're getting good results back from them.
No, not really, Marty, because what color calibrating does is it's a standard color that the calibrators use, and then all the labs are also calibrating using that same standard.
Yeah, but
so it all gets,
all right,
it's telling the telling the computer what your monitor is putting out in a color so that you have a standard to use, and it's the same standard that the labs are using. So
Yeah, but ACI and Bay Photo don't have the exact same calibration specs.
yeah, but
They have
all the
they have an
monitors,
industry standard. Well, yeah, but I can
Yeah.
look at an image, Jeff. I can look at an image on 4 different screens here in my office, and they're all going to look a little different because none of these things are going to be an exact match to anybody else.
Yeah,
no, but
Marty and I,
it gets you within the ballpark. That's the important part.
Well, yeah, but well, maybe my Macs are in the ballpark already, and I never have to worry about it. Maybe that's what it is then.
Marty
Yeah.
and I got into an interesting conversation about our A-Team Challenge group, and I was displaying a photo of a flower. And Marty said, "Hey, in the center there, it's blown out." And I went, by the way, Marty, I went and looked at that photo later, looked at the histogram, and there were nothing was blowing out in the histogram. So,
No, it
wouldn't
wasn't.
wouldn't
Go ahead,
that
Andy.
difference between you looking at your photo on your monitor and the lab, wouldn't it depend on the media there? Is that the right word? The paper, the printer paper, wouldn't that make a difference as to the color?
Yeah, it does make a difference for the color and for how it gets printed. And you can a lot of times get profiles from the lab to plug into Lightroom or something to be able to do it. It's just that the color calibrating is getting your monitor to a standard brightness and a set of colors that are built in that are universal throughout the industry. And that's, I mean, when I color calibrate, I've got 3 different monitors. When I get them color calibrated, they all look identical. There's no different shades of gray. All the colors look the same. So when
That's what I'm
I-
saying, is
Yeah.
that it would depend, the color, any color differences then I would think would be on what they're printing on.
Right. It
Well,
can be
that's
what
what
they're
I-
printing on and the color profile that you're sending them. If you send them an sRGB, you have a better chance of getting good color than if you send them a Pro Photo color space, because that shows way more colors than our monitors can even show. So
Jeff, when you calibrate your monitors, you said that you get them very close. Are they all the same brand? Because I have 2 Dells that are a year apart and I can never get them exactly the same.
both of mine are, well, I got 2 LGs and then my MacBook Pro screen.
Hmm.
And right now I've got 1 LG that's off color. It's a little more magenta, but the other LG and the MacBook Pro are identical yet. So one of them is shifted off color a little bit. And then I have a second computer over here with another LG screen that's been color calibrated. And that one matches right now 2 of the other one where I've got my main screen for some reason keeps shifting off color. So I have to color calibrate this one screen more than I do any of the others for some reason. So something's going on with one of the screens over the others. But I have from 2 different computers, I'm getting identical colors because the screens are all sitting side by side.
Wow.
And I can look and see that I use a gray background on everything. So I can tell from the gray how it shifts from monitor to monitor. And right now I've got 3 out of 4 that are in sync with one another. So,
the biggest
it just puts you in the ballpark. It's not going to get you exact. Yeah, Brian?
Yeah, the biggest challenge I have, in going from monitor to print is brightness. Just because, on our monitor, it's background lit, the source of light is from the background. And you get to the printer, and you don't have that. And then it's just ambient light reflecting off the paper. And so sometimes I just have to do a little test print to make sure that the value of the light is, to my liking before I print a large one.
Well, I
Yeah,
think
and-
most of the software has a setting when you're calibrating to set the brightness, because most monitors are much brighter than.
Well, yeah, you're right, but still it's backlit versus, front lit from print.
Right. Yeah,
It's a big difference
it
in
is
my
a
mind.
difference. My monitor is set at 120 candles per square inch, I think is what they call it. I found that because that matches my printers. And I did go through a lot of work to get my printers to match up with my screens. And they're fairly close, but they're not perfect. But when I send a Bay photo, I always get good results, and I don't have them do any color correction or any adjustments. They're supposed to print my stuff straight. And
Do you get the
and I
color
get good
profiles for their
results.
printers?
No,
At Bay Photo?
no. I just send it to them as an sRGB file, and the stuff I get back is just about identical to my screen. There's always going to be some differences because the color profiles aren't perfect.
Yeah, I had
But,
sent them a metal print about a month and a half ago. And I asked them not to adjust, and it came back quite a bit darker than what I saw on my screen, probably because my screens are too bright.
Yeah, I've got all my screens are at 50% brightness.
Did you say
About-
you didn't have them color adjust?
No, I don't have my labs color adjust because I want it to go out to them, and I want them to print it at the color that I see on my screen.
I mean, the
thought-
other
Sorry, I
another
talked
major
to,
difference. I'm sorry.
go ahead, Brian.
Good. I was just going to say another major difference between screen and print is the amount of data. I don't know how to say this, but the bits, if you will. I do photography for my stepson, who's an artist, and we will photograph his art with good quality camera. But still, when you go to print, even on the screen, there's data lost, and some of the colors just don't quite come out. And everything's a compromise between, what was really there, what you photographed, and what you see on the screen. You lose some data, and then when you go to print, you lose even more data in terms of bits.
Yeah, Photoshop has the proofing that you can set up the proofing to, and pick the printer color profile that you're going to use, and it'll give you not perfect information about what it's going to look like, but it gives you more information about what it's going to look like when it prints.
Yeah, and the other part also is that I use really inexpensive monitors. So my monitor color range is only an IPS monitor. It's a gaming monitor. So the color range is a little more than an sRGB, but not as much as Adobe RGB. I think Hubert's, you said you got a BenQ. That one has I believe, a better color range, and it's a more expensive monitor than my $130 monitors. But
I
so
bought
that will also create a difference.
I bought the lower priced one. I didn't get the 4K. This is 1080, I believe, if I remember correctly.
Yeah.
But it was recommended by a photographer who I follow, and of course I still have a Dell, an old Dell, and that thing still works pretty good. My issue is I want to set it up so I can view on both screens from my computer. I haven't figured out that yet, or sat down to learn about how to do that yet. How to have two screens and move photos from one to the other and that kind of stuff, like I see you guys do.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, that's a couple of just simple computer settings usually, and enough ports to do it. But that's the other big problem, and Marty's right in a lot of ways, that the labs are using expensive monitors and I'm using a cheap monitor. So it's only to a point that color calibrating is just getting you within the ballpark. And I found so far that I just color calibrate before I send my images out to a lab, and then I found that everything's worked out fine. But it is just getting you within the ballpark, and the brightness is probably the most important part.
Well, too,
because-
think about the mechanics of printers. My printer, it's low end. It's what, a Canon 100 Pro 100. So it's got what, 10 different colors. So computers are
Yep.
trying to figure out how to mix these 10 different colors to form whatever was photographed. It's close. It's an approximation. That's the best it can do.
Yep. And the printer will actually print out more color than what our monitors show. So that's always a problem unless you buy a monitor that's an Adobe RGB, or heaven forbid you spend the thousands of dollars to get a Pro Photo monitor. It's a whole combination. What's fortunate is most of these LCD monitors, like Marty said, works fine right out of the box, and you can be good for quite a while. Because I buy cheaper monitors, I've got to color calibrate more often to keep mine all in sync, but I can keep them. It's just I've got one that just doesn't stay in sync with the other three, which is a little weird, but I haven't figured that part out yet.
It also has to do with the time of day that you're calibrating your monitor. The light in the room the images will look differently, and beautiful golden light in the evening rather than a cloudy morning. And so if you calibrate your monitor on one morning where it's nice and cloudy, and then you're trying to view the images when the light in the room is different, it's going to look a little bit different than what you might see when you print or post.
Yeah, and that's why like Wacko uses a print box that has a set color temperature to it, so that you get everything. I work in a basement where there's no windows, and I don't have any lights generally on in my basement when I'm working on my photos, so that I can just get the color from the monitors and not anything reflecting off of them. And I do the same thing when I color calibrate. The lights are off, so that I'm just color calibrating for the particular monitor. But it's interesting to hear that, Matt Kluskowski is not talking about doing as much calibrating as he used to. So stuff is changing.
I think he just came around to my way of thinking. I think that's all it is. So,
yeah, it could be. It could be.
I guess,
and stuff is changing. Maybe I'm out of date.
Two quick points here. So first of all, when Mark asked this question, I said, okay, this will open up the can of worms, and I guess it sure did. I did put in the chat information from Bay Photo and how they look at how they word that here. It's color correction versus no color correction, and it kind of goes into their whole thought process behind it. So that might be some interesting reading for everybody to help get an understanding of the labs and their standpoint on it. But I'll go back to one of the things I said earlier, is that it is about output. And if you're printing to your own printers, absolutely, I think it's important to calibrate your monitors to your printers. I don't think that's a bad thing. But going outside, that's not quite as critical, I don't believe. In all the years of doing this, and I've sold thousands of pictures that went to the lab and back and not had color issues. So
yeah.
Do you, Marty, when you send them to the lab, do you have them sent back to you before you give them or send them out to the client?
I get plenty back, just as I do for myself. Most of my stuff goes directly to the client, and I don't have anybody coming back and saying, hey, how come my face is red, or how come and I'll give you a really quick story about that. So years ago, way back when I was using ACI primarily, and I was doing a lot of portrait work back then, I was sending stuff to ACI as studio color, which means that I wanted to print what I'm seeing on my screen. And all of a sudden, I started getting things back that had a real red or magenta cast to them. So I called up Rick. What was Rick's last name? Anyway, he's the rep at the time, and he's a Mac guy and a professional photographer. Ran a full time. So Rick Tremmel, and he said, well, he said, yeah, he says on Max, he said, just try and send it in for lab color and see what kind of results you get. Send it for lab color. My red problem was just gone. So now I will admit I was not calibrated to ACI's monitors. And had I done that, maybe that problem wouldn't have been there. But the fact is that I'm comfortable with sending my files the way I see them on my screens. Either one of my computers, I can send it, and I know I'm going to get back what should be a very accurate color. Is it going to be one shade off here or there, or one light tone off here or there? Yeah, maybe. But, the person receiving that picture isn't going to know what it looks like on my screen. And what it looks like on my screen is never going to be 100% accurate to what it's going to match on a piece of paper or a piece of metal. There's going to be differences there.
Well, a few minutes ago when we were talking about Bay Photo, and you said that Jeff, you got pictures back perfectly, and I said that I got one darker. I spoke with them about it. I asked them not to adjust the color on it, and they suggested that I send them in a guide print, which I think from now on I'm getting ready to order. If I order a photo that's $200 or $300 to print, I don't want to have to reprint it, and I feel like I have to do that with this one. So I'm going to print on my own Epson printer and get it the way that I like it and send it to them and then order the prints, I think. But if I do that for one that I'm selling, I'm a little concerned because I won't see the print before the customer gets it.
If you have a drop ship to them, did you request their ICC profiles? You can get that right on their website.
Yeah, I didn't.
And then,
I used to do that with Costco when I printed there, but I didn't with them. That's a good point.
And then, so depending on which program you're working in, if it's Lightroom or Photoshop or whatever, you can put those ICC profiles in, and that should also help solve that issue you had. Just a suggestion.
Yeah, that's a good one. It's like printing and getting color correct is just as big of a genre of photography as photography is shooting itself.
Oh, absolutely.
It's gotten so much better than what it used to be. It used to be a lot worse. 10 years ago, color calibrating was a lot more important than it seems to be today. So 10 years ago with the CRT monitors, those things shifted so quickly that you needed to color calibrate almost weekly. With LCD monitors and that, it's monthly that you need to color calibrate.
And really, Drummond, to go along with that premise, I mean, yeah, absolutely, it's got so much more important, but it also speaks to how critical it was back in the film days when we were shooting, especially slide film. You had to know and understand exposure and get it right in the camera. Now we just kind of get it close to the camera and figure we'll fix it later. Well, the old film shooters, especially slide shooters, knew how to set up the camera because you weren't playing with those images after you shot them. They had to be right.
Although labs did do quite a bit of work in adjusting them. I know when I was shooting film and I didn't know much about having the film pictures developed, and I shot a rainbow one time and the rainbow just didn't show up in the image at all. And when I talked to the lab about it, they said, "Oh, you didn't tell us that you wanted us to expose the prints for the rainbow." And they
right. So in printing, absolutely, they've always done things behind the scenes that most people don't realize in printing. But I'm saying with slide film in particular, unless you were printing a slide, slides had to be right on. You didn't have. I mean, they were what they were.
True.
Yeah, and everybody's lost that now because they can shoot in RAW and be off 2 stops either way, where Kodachrome you had to be dead on, otherwise you didn't get good slides. But even when we process prints, we color calibrated all our printing machines, which was a whole nother story, so that we could get good prints. But then we were constantly adjusting with print film to get good exposures because people were all over the place. And
every film had its own little. I mean, if you were shooting, just standard Kodacolor versus Portra. I mean, those were,
Yep.
you had to deal with those entirely differently in film than you did on, on your print machine, your film machine and your print machine. That
Right.
was just different.
We would have to
And
color
again-
calibrate for every different type of film, and we would buy these packs of all the different films from a source to calibrate our machines, and those packs were like $400 and would have the 20 most popular print films out there. And then you would go through and run those through and use a densitometer to match up all the colors and get that done. It was quite a chore to do. And every time somebody would come in with a weird film, it was always tricky to try to figure out how to print.
Run a roll of Seattle Filmworks through that once, Jeff, and see
Oh
what you
yeah.
get.
Well, yeah, we always had to watch out. Seattle Filmworks was movie film, and it had a carbon backing on it. And boy, you ran one of those through your machines, all you had was carbon particles through all your chemistry, and then you had to dump it and remake fresh. And
I'm betting half the people in here never heard of that. They're never heard of Seattle Filmworks. But
yeah, well, half the people here probably hardly even remember film. So,
Hey, one thing interesting for all this conversation on color, we haven't even talked about calibrating your camera, which is where you take the pictures with. Most of us, the cameras are so good, we generally set it in auto, and maybe we tweak it a little bit in Lightroom or Photoshop, but to get the best color, you really need to calibrate your camera. There's some situations, like when I shoot at church, there's so many different light sources that I have to shoot a target to create a preset, for all the work that I do there. But you gotta, if it's not right in the camera, it's gonna be tough to get it right downstream.
Yep. Yeah, I still carry a gray card and a color passport color checker in my bags for when I'm critical on the color that I want to get. And shooting in places like churches or anything indoor where you got all these different colored lights nowadays.
Yeah.
I used to, when I shoot photographed houses in the inside, I would carry my own light bulbs so that I could get all daylight colored light bulbs in all the fixtures so that it would match with outside and be a lot easier. But
when I shoot artwork, I do that.
Yeah. Rick Hawthorne mentions that his BenQ only requires calibration about every 6 months, and it has a feature that notifies him. So that's sort of nice. That's part of buying those better monitors over the way I've done it with a cheap monitor. But I check most of my stuff. I check on my MacBook Pro before it goes anywhere, because that screen is my best screen. But well, that was an interesting discussion.
Yeah. What was the question?
Oop, he just erased it. I was just going to read it back. I did have Jeff. Do you have? I guess it looks like Brian. You sent in a question about Windows 11 on Facebook. Does that sound right, Brian?
No.
No. Okay.
No.
Anthony Schultz, he sent me a direct message. There was a question on Facebook from Brian about Windows 11. Does he still have that question? I'm not sure. Anthony, what are you referring to there?
Well, I think on the Menominee Falls Facebook thing, I think it was Brian who asked if anyone had upgraded to Windows 11.
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Yeah, and I answered him, and I wondered if he still had any questions and whether anyone else had questions about Windows 11.
Well, thanks for that, Tony. I'm going to just take the plunge one of these days whenever I have a long window of time. And I mean, my understanding is that the apps are generally up to date now. They're compatible with 11. And I don't know about drivers. Did you have any trouble with drivers, Tony?
No, because, well, let's see, as I mentioned it when I responded to you, that my laptop's about a year old and my desktop is almost 2 years old. And they're both from Dell, and Dell notifies me when there are updated drivers. And so I update anything that comes from Dell. So, but when I initially installed Windows 11 on both units, it worked wonderful. There are differences in the user interface, which in most cases make it easier. And in some cases, like, where is that again? Like typical Microsoft stuff.
A lot of people are.
But and my wife just mentioned that a lot of people are having trouble with 11, but I think it may depend on how old your computers are. So
Yeah.
that's
Yeah, my system isn't that old, and I get alerts that says that my system is compatible. And go ahead, why are you waiting? That's so many words.
yeah. And if I've had that when we went years ago with Windows 10, and so I did, as you said, I took the plunge and it worked wonderful. So that's all.
Okay, thanks, Tony. Appreciate it.
Yeah, I usually recommend, I've got one Windows laptop that I'm still debating whether I'm going to update it or not. I think it says it's capable, but I wait for at least 1 or 2 versions. So instead of being Windows 11 Prime, it's 11.1, 11.2 or whatever they happen to call theirs, to make sure that they get the bugs out after the first release, even though they've tested it. Plus, I'm a
it's not
little
only
worried.
them, but all the vendors that provide the apps, and
Right.
the Adobes and all those folks.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure Adobe and all the main ones, but I use this laptop for the Wacko competition for the uploader, and I don't know if that particular program is set up for Windows 11 or not yet. So that's the whole reason I haven't updated it. But
Yeah, you'd have to communicate with the vendor and see what
Yep.
they say. Yeah.
yeah, and that's the only use for this particular laptop. So I haven't updated it yet. But then I haven't even updated all my machines to the latest Apple one, Monterey. I'm still running Big Sur because yeah, I won't until it gets to 12.2. It just I've got my one computer, my Mac Mini is running Monterey right now, and it doesn't seem to be a problem with it. But I this main computer, I don't want to take a chance that there's something that's not going to work that I need to use. Now I'm pretty sure almost everything is up to date, and the Mac Mini that I have has the M1 chip in it, so it was designed for Monterey, so I wasn't too worried about that one. But my
I would
MacBook Pro
just like
is
to
old.
interject, speaking of up to date, anybody who is using type 1 fonts will no longer be supported by Adobe as of January 2023. So just if people do newsletters or have documents, flyers, whatever, that are using type 1, they call them type 1 fonts, they will no longer be supported, and a substitute will be placed in any of your Adobe. I don't know if Microsoft is doing that as well, but type 1 fonts are going away because of the fact that OpenType is and this is totally different than well, no, it's tech. So yeah, so just be aware you have about 11 and a half months to replace your type 1 fonts before they become replaced by somebody you don't really know.
Yeah, I use TrueType fonts and Open fonts, so I think I'm safe.
Yeah. Well, if anybody buys new fonts too, don't don't buy a type 1 font.
Yeah,
So
I stay within Adobe's own system for buying font, getting my free fonts. So they offer 15,000 or 1,500 different fonts. So
I
I
know
figure
I
I'm pretty
just,
safe.
a type 1 font, somebody wants to know, was a sort of architecture that I think it was Microsoft and Apple came up with. It was a way to print information. Now, if any type 1 fonts are in a PDF file, let me put it that way, those are fine. Those are already sort of encapsulated in that. But I've written articles about type 1 fonts, and it's
Let me read you what the internet says about type 1 fonts. Type 1
okay, thank you.
Is a font format that came to the market around 1984.
Yep.
You remember the Apple commercials with the guy? Never mind.
No.
together with PostScript and Apple Laser Writer. This is the reason why the font format is sometimes called PostScript Type 1, even though you can also print these fonts on a non-PostScript device since early in the 90s. Early in 2021, Adobe announced that its Creative Cloud application, like InDesign and Illustrator, will stop supporting those fonts as of 2023. So, yeah, it's an old format, much like Adobe Flash was an old format, and it went away. That's just Adobe trying to keep up with the times and keep ahead of the times.
Well, there's something called glyphs, which are addendums and different characters that can now be placed within these fonts. Also, swash characters, ornaments, and so on. And type 1 did not support a lot of that. So as I looked over some of the thousands of fonts that I have accumulated over the since 1984, I am going to have to purge an awful lot of them. Awful lot of them I do not use, but just be aware that anybody who does perhaps newsletters and so on, I don't know if it's going to become an industry standard, but right now it's Adobe and they're a pretty big thing. So
Yeah. Yeah, and I use Adobe supplies so many fonts that you can search and find. I remember when back in those days in the 80s and 90s when I would buy CD, I'd have 5 or 10 CDs worth of fonts, different types of fonts, and I think those are the ones that are undoubtedly going away. I haven't used those in years because Adobe supplies me with more than enough fonts as it is.
I also just discovered that. I've never taken advantage of that because of Adobe's fonts usage, because they've got some big brand names in there that I use. And I think if you subscribe to any of the Adobe products, you have access to their fonts.
Yep, pretty much. So
good.
Just going back to the Windows update, Rick Hawthorne mentioned that he just had a new PC built by Milwaukee PC, and they advised him to wait about a year so that Microsoft could work out the issues and get software issues worked out. And that's probably a good philosophy, unless there's a feature in the new operating system that you desperately need.
I desperately need the free copy. At some point, they'll start charging for it. That's what happened with Windows 10. The time I finally got ready to install Windows 10, the free offer died, and I had to pay for it. So,
yeah, I would bet they're going to keep it going free because Apple does not charge for any of their software. So, for their upgrades on their operating system, and that's pretty much gotten, I think, Windows or Microsoft to do the same thing. But yeah, you're right. I had one computer I think was on Windows 7, and I missed the opportunity to upgrade it to Windows 10, and it was going to have to pay. Then I just decided to let the computer die. So
It's cheaper to buy a new computer.
yep,
If it was free,
it really was.
If it was free, they would
Yeah.
have called it 10.
Yeah.
Do you guys know,
Yeah.
is there any Apple forum that you can join to talk about upgrade issues?
Absolutely. So there are Apple user groups around. There's 2 or 3 of them here in the state. I can send you a link to the group I belong to in Marshfield. We meet on Zoom, so we meet
Okay.
the 3rd Sunday evening. So actually, right before we did our meeting the other night, Steve, I was on our Apple meeting. So
Okay.
I'll send you a link to it. And anybody else that's interested, shoot me a. Ellen would be here. Well, put your name in the chat if you're interested in the Apple user group. I'll
Yeah, and Marty, send it to me as well. I'd be interested, but also I'll post it with the video on the
Notes,
Wacko
yeah.
site, so people might be interested in that. I don't know if there used to be a Windows one somewhere, but I don't know where it might be anymore.
I was
But,
just curious
Right,
because
so-
I have a Catalina on my mini Mac, and it works fine with my Epson printer. I have Monterey on my laptop, but I haven't tried it with the printer yet. I'm just nervous because my printer's an old model. It's a 2009 printer, so I get nervous about switching it over to Monterey on my mini Mac because then if it messes up my drivers and all that kind of stuff like that. That's why I was just curious about that.
yeah, and that could be a problem. I had that problem with my big printers not being supported anymore, but they were 10 and 12 years old.
Yeah.
And was getting I was having a heck of a time getting the drivers and the profiles to work. And I'm actually going to end up trashing the printers because it just isn't worth the struggle anymore. But yeah, that's a tough one. You sort of got to try it carefully. You got to upgrade carefully. Because Epson, I believe the drivers are built into the Monterey operating system, if I remember right.
That's what somebody told me, but I'm still nervous about trying it. I probably
Yeah.
will just to see if it works, but because I don't want to change my mini Mac because it's working. So
Yeah,
but,
yeah. Sometimes when it works, don't change it. If there's no reason for to do the upgrade, I want to do the upgrade. My Mac Mini's running it, and it's got a couple extra features on it. Keynote runs a little better on it on Monterey than it does in the regular. And Keynote's got a bunch of new features that only works in Monterey that I'd really like to try. So I may take the plunge one of these days. If Marty says it's safe, then maybe it's safe. Then I can blame him.
Well, Jeff, I mean, I haven't ran into any issues, but you run a lot more specialized software on some of the things that you do. So that's where I'm not sure for you, if maybe you're probably better off doing what you're doing, waiting for the next iteration of it. But typically I jump in right away, but I'm using, for the most part, stock programs other than my photo editing programs. So
Yeah.
I just don't run into a lot of issues with compatibility because of that, I think.
Yeah, there's a couple of things that I worry about. Yeah, and I use some oddball programs once in a while. So most of them are up to date. So it's not a whole big deal. But if it breaks it, trying to downgrade is a real pain.
Right. Yeah.
And so I'm real careful to upgrade. I've got 2 of them on Monterey, and the one here has been working just fine, but that's that Mac Mini, so it works fine with everything so far, and I've got the same programs on both computers, because I'm just testing to see how a Mac Mini with 8 gigabytes of RAM can do with the new M1 chip compared to the old Intel computer. And I'm comparing a $600 computer to a $3,500 computer, and I'm finding out the $600 computer just about is as fast as my $3,500 one. So,
Oh, that's interesting. Because when I ordered my Mac Mini before the M1 came out, and I ordered 64 gig at RAM because I didn't want to have any issues. Because my other one was 16, and I was starting to get memory issues. But of course, it is a lot faster. But then the M1 chip came out, and of course, everybody's saying how great it is. But I don't know. I sure like my 64 gig on my old one. So.
Well, I'll tell you, my MacBook Pro is a 2020 with 32 gigabytes of RAM and a 1 terabyte solid state hard drive with the Intel chip in it. Running it against my Mac Mini, which is 8 gigabytes of RAM, 256 gigabyte solid state hard drive that ran $600. It can run Final Cut Pro, Photoshop faster than my 2020 MacBook Pro with the Intel chip.
So that's the processing that the M1 chip, the way that it processes information is that much more efficient.
Is that much more efficient because everything's all on that one chip. I wish I wouldn't have had to buy this Intel laptop, but my other laptop just really went completely nuts and I had to have it rebuilt. And so I had to buy the computer to keep going. And I just now with testing the $600 Mac Mini. Now, the only drawback with the Mac Mini right now is that it's only got 256 in the hard drive, but I was able to pick up a SanDisk hard drive that's 1 terabyte that's plugged into the USB port, and it's as fast enough to be able to store everything else on there and just keep the programs on the SSD in the Mac Mini. But I'm just amazed that what a $600 computer can do for the average person. It's certainly got more than enough power, and even for a lot of Photoshop and video stuff, the thing just surprises me on how good it is. So I can't wait to upgrade to the new M1 Max chip that's out there for the MacBook Pro. That's what I plan to do, probably in another year.
Jeff, to stick with the Apple theme here, Tony's got a question, HEIC files and the iPhones and iPads. And then he asked about the iPhone and iPad user group. And Tony, those we cover the iPads and everything too in the Apple group. So again, if you want, I can put you on the list for that and you can get an invite for the next meeting. So the HEIC files, it's a compressed JPEG file that Apple uses. And there are converters to send, whether you're if you send an HEIC file to a PC, for instance, I think iMazing is the converter I use for that at work. And on my Mac, if I airdrop a HEIC file to my iMac from my phone, for instance, I just bring it into a preview and convert it there to a JPEG file.
Well, I didn't elaborate on the question, but so I will now. They randomly show up when I'm downloading from the iPhone or iPad to my PC. Sometimes there's those HEIC.
HEIC, yeah.
Yeah, there's sometimes they're there and sometimes they are. And on one vacation, I had probably about 100 HEIC files mixed in with all of the JPEGs, and I had to buy the converter from Microsoft, and it worked, but I don't know why they're coming out as HEIC.
Well,
at
I
times.
guess I'm kind of curious about that too, because any picture you take on your iPhone is unless you change, there is a setting you go and change it to just be a JPEG, but it also takes up more space on your phone, and that's why they created this format so that storage on your phone, it created more storage on your phone by them compressing the file. But if you take the picture with your phone, it's going to be an HEIC file unless you converted it. Now, why you're getting a mixture of JPEG and HEIC, I'm not sure, because anything you've taken on your phone is going to be an HEIC file. Now, I don't know if you're, like, say, for instance, if you're taking some on your iPad, how old your iPad is. Maybe it's old enough that it's still shooting just JPEG and not HEIC. And then when they get together, that might be why you're mixing them. I'm not sure.
Yeah, they're both devices are less than 2 years old.
Okay.
Okay. So yeah.
Are you using a different program to take the photos with, or are you processing the photos on your phone?
No.
With a program?
No.
It's okay.
It's just a direct copy down and
but they're always all off your phone. They're not a mix of some maybe you took on a regular camera and are bringing them into a file, and then you're bringing these iPhone pictures in file.
Just straight shots and then copy to the PC.
Yeah,
is it like an iPhone 12?
Pardon?
Is it an iPhone 12 or is it older than a 12?
I never remember. I think it might be. Where would I look?
Under general and about, I believe.
General and about. Oh yes, right. It's a what? It's
Thought it
well,
was
that's
in that spot.
interesting. I don't see it.
The only thing that I'm wondering with the newer phones, if they're automatically going to HDR, and I wouldn't be surprised that when they go to HDR that they are
converted back to a
JPEG.
Tony,
right
if you look
under general, it's like the third thing down, the model name, because I've got an iPhone Pro 12 Pro Max.
Yeah.
And I know that one shifts HDR to automatic, and I would think then it's going to do the one format, and it could do JPEG for regular stuff.
I was just looking at the format in my camera thing, and it says if you go under general settings, camera, there's one section called formats, and you can check high efficiency, or the other setting is most compatible. So maybe you got yours set at most compatible rather than the high efficiency.
Okay, so
that might be, yeah.
Both of those suggestions going under general, I do not have the next things that you have.
Under general and then under about. General and then about. And then there should be like the third or fourth item down that tells you which phone it is.
Oh, I've got it. It's a 7.
Okay. And then
but you want to go under settings and then camera and then format.
Okay, and I do not have camera under settings.
Oh yeah. Yeah, you do. It's down a ways, but it's there.
Yeah, you got to go down a ways till you get to camera.
Yep, don't have it.
It's quite a ways down.
I'm all the way to the bottom. I do not have anything that says camera.
Under settings, you got to go back out to the first settings page, not under about. Go back out of.
Yeah, I'm under settings.
Okay.
It's under settings, so you see your name at the top, and
well,
there. How you cannot have it.
Well.
Oh, wait a minute. No, I still don't have anything that says camera.
You're not in general then?
I'm in general, in settings.
Go out of general.
Okay.
Now go down to camera.
He could be
Okay,
set at
camera.
there's a
And then
setting that I
formats?
use. Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh.
I'm most compatible is checked,
Yeah, that's why you're
that's what I
getting
was
two
just
different
gonna,
formats.
but the
Yeah,
other
that will-
one is high efficiency.
yeah.
That's the HEIC.
Yeah, and
Right.
I don't want HEIC. So I guess,
So what you got is the best you're gonna get.
okay, all right.
Most
Now I
compatible
understand.
shifts it back and forth. So, and that's what I use. But I shoot all my images in RAW. So, if you shoot them all in RAW and bring them into a RAW converter like Lightroom, or any Adobe product, Adobe can read any of those RAW formats that the iPhone puts out. You just won't be able, the Windows computer won't be able to recognize it as a photo, but
Well, yeah, I did find a converter on
Yeah.
Microsoft, cost me $3. And
Yeah.
I
it
was gonna
works.
say there is a free Microsoft converter. It's called iMazing, and I downloaded that one at work, and it's a real simpler converter to use. So for any of the other PC people out there that run into this, look for iMazing.
Okay, well, thank you.
gee, it's just another reason to switch to Apple.
I have programs that will not run on an Apple. Plus, I was raised on PCs. And the expense, right now, my Alienware laptop is just, I am still amazed at the speed. Boot up time, 6 or 7 seconds. Full boot up.
Yeah. So, all right. Well, we're going to switch gears here. It's 11:02. So, we've had a lot of good discussions on a lot of different topics here in the last hour. So we're going to switch over to what I'm calling how to present your images on websites. And let me just share my screen here and we'll get started on mine. Let's see, I think that's, let's do this just in case. So I'm going to talk about mainly three or four websites that are usable. But there's a ton of them out there. Adobe makes them, Squarespace, Wix, GoDaddy, Weebly, WordPress, and then there's many, many more websites out there. One of the main ones that is free, or not free, I should say, but comes with your Adobe, if you've got Lightroom and Photoshop, is My Portfolio. This is sort of what my portfolio would look like. I've got basically a test site, but it's part of Adobe's Creative Cloud, so you're using their cloud setup. You can do up to 5 different websites with them, and it works out of collections. And I'm gonna get into how it works. I'm gonna demonstrate My Portfolio and how to work with that, and how Squarespace works, which is the other one that I use and that Wacko uses for their website. PSA Chapter uses it, and Menominee Falls Camera Club uses it. So you can do just about anything with a Squarespace website. They do have free trials. Almost all of these have free trials to get you started. Most of them are going to run $12 to $26 a month. They're templated sites, so it's a drag and drop setup. And they're also set up to be mobile optimized, so it works with your phones and iPads as well. here is their pricing structure. The one that's probably the most popular is their standard $18 a month or $216 a year. You get a free domain name, you get security, unlimited bandwidth and storage, which is the really nice part. Unlimited contributors. So if you've got more than one person, you can contribute in. I like that they redo their sites for iPhones and iPads. So some of them didn't used to do that. Nowadays they do. So Squarespace is one of my favorites. You'll hear from Marty on a couple of his coming up. I pulled a few others. Wix is one that's popular with a lot of just individual people. A lot of it can be just free, but they do have custom domain names. They've got a logo maker that looked sort of interesting, and they've got a blog set up that works. It seems pretty nice because the Wix seems to be set up more for an individual blogging type person. Their pricing is about the same. It's $14 for personal stuff all the way up to $39. $23 seems to be a month. You do have sort of a limit in the video hours that you can put videos up, and that would worry me a little bit, other than I believe they're hosting the videos right on their site, where I host it on either Vimeo or YouTube. But so they're one option. GoDaddy is another one that has a templated website. They also will convert your site to mobile design and for editing. They also have social media emailing all in one spot. They also, of course, do domain names, so you've got everything all in one place. And they have customizable templated themes. And they're actually hosting it right on their site. Their pricing runs from $7 to $15 a month. And these are all annual prices, so it's if you want to pay just by month, that's a little bit more. But it's fairly reasonable with GoDaddy. I found it's a little harder site to work with, but I would imagine that was a couple years ago when I was looking at that compared to the Squarespace site. Squarespace was right out there with a couple others. Marty's going to get into the Weebly stuff a little bit more, but I thought I'd better show it. Otherwise, I'd get in trouble from Marty. But it's a drag and drop builder setup, I believe templated. You get video and audio stuff with it. Just and they're from free to $26 a month. So you can get a basic one, I guess, for free, and all the way up to their full featured one at $26 a month. Marty, which one would you say is the standard pricing?
Yeah, so for most of my customers, I've been using the professional, the $12 a month. It just gives me the tools that I really need to do it without being limited, because of some of the on the lower end, there's just more restrictions on which tools could be used and can't be used.
Right. Okay.
WordPress. I will point out, Jeff, real quick. So Weebly is actually owned by Square, and Square has their own website builder as well. It's a little different. Weebly is a much more robust program than what Square has, but pricing wise, it's about the same range there.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's interesting. Yeah, and Square is the one that has the payment set up.
Right. So you can actually integrate payments right into it. Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. That's sort of nice. I may have to look at that. One other one is WordPress.com. WordPress is a big website building setup that you can use on host on a lot of different sites, but you can host it on their WordPress site. I find that WordPress was a little more harder to use, but it's got its advantages. I think if you want to build a more complicated site, you are building it with blocks. I think it's gotten easier than what it was. But there's a lot of possibilities. They have a lot of different plugins, and WordPress is basically a community set up website system, and a lot of people are using that for the more complicated websites. Their pricing structure is about the same. It's $4 a year, and you just have to look to see, you know, the different features that you get as you move up on all of these sites. WordPress has quite a few extra features, but it's I think a little more complicated of a site to work with. So my two sites, and I'll show the back ends to these, but this one is my portfolio site that I get for free. Or I shouldn't say for free, because I am paying. Well, I pay $55 a month to Adobe, so because I get their whole package. But if you pay the $10 a month, you would have this available to you. This is my Squarespace site, jrklug.com, and we'll get into both of them. So let me get out of this and pull up. Oh, that's right. I always forget. All right. So this is the sign in to the portfolio website. And let me just get this to fill the page. So you sign in using your Adobe login. And come on. And of course, everything has these days a double sign in. Adobe makes it nice. They just have a app on your phone that you can approve. That way nobody can get into these sites. You can either edit this site, or you can create up to 5 total sites. We'll go into my portfolio site. And you can add a logo photo. Now, what I did is I took one of my favorite photos and I put the type in, and that so that it could all be dropped in. Otherwise, you can just put in a the name of your site. I have a contact area so that you can contact me, and you can add all this stuff in. You can adjust it. So that works out pretty well. For the work, you have different sections. Now these work off of collections. So you just either need to have a collection in Lightroom, which is synced up to the cloud. And like I have a Florida one. I have car ornaments, which are just different parts of cars. I've got life with Ken shooting in the museum. And then my favorite images. On the side here, you've got, this is where you add the pages. You've got different themes that you can choose from. So you've got all these different type themes. I happen to like sort of a clean white background. So I don't remember what theme I actually picked. And it's the Mercedes, I guess, theme. So that one works pretty well for me, but you can try all these different themes out. You've got you can set up whether you want headers, logo, different navigations, footers, go back to the top if you want, and that. So to add, what I do is I have different collections in Lightroom. I also have a contact page that you can set that one up, and you've got a gear here to be able to edit that page or do different things with it, or even delete it. So if I want to add one, have to take. If I want to add a page, I can do that. If I want to just add a album, I can do that, or create a collection. So I believe if we can do this, this goes to my cloud page that I have with all my different different collections that I have going. So I can just pick one here, and I think, oh, that's a pretty ugly one. How about my 2015 collection? And then I just can import that. And let's see. Here it goes.
Jeff, I think what you wanted to do is add a page.
Yeah, I think this added what, a whole. Well, this added the page, it looks like. Just taking forever to load. There we go. So that added the page, I believe. Yep, 2015. So yeah, you just click it. And then if you ever change your collection, you just have to go into here and go reset from Lightroom, and that will update the page from when you change a collection in Lightroom itself, which took me a while to figure out how to get it to update.
So it doesn't automatically sync to your collections?
No, it doesn't. You need to update it
Okay.
when you change a collection. Which I thought it should automatically do it, but it doesn't for some reason. But
What kind of info does it show up on here? Title or anything like that?
Show what? Pardon?
When you click on one of your images here, what does it do you have a place to put title in, or location, or anything like that? Or
it has like I have titles on a lot of these, so that seems to be showing up. You can go through individual images, because this was also a book. I do a yearly book, so all my images generally in the years have titles.
So it doesn't appear you can add text anywhere. Huh?
You have titles on them in Lightroom, right?
Yeah, it's in Lightroom. I can actually, let's see.
You can't actually look at like the IPTC data or anything like that within the portfolio here. Okay.
No. Let's see if I get out of this part.
And these are all JPEGs, right?
They're downsized JPEGs that are sitting in Adobe's cloud.
Okay. And are you resizing them, or does it automatically size them when it imports them into the portfolio?
It's automatically resizing them in. So if I bring in, here's my Lightroom. Let's see, so I can see everything. So if we go down to that 2015, let's see, I got to get to my collections, which I have way too many collections going. Uh, yeah, yearbook 2000. I think that's the one that I picked.
Yeah, it looks like it.
Yeah. So all my images are here. The collection needs to be synced. That's the only trick. So you could actually create a group of collections just for your website, and that's what I would suggest doing. And then you bring them in just like I did for the different pages. And here's where I've got the title. I use that spot in here because it also works for when I did the books, and when I do slideshows, I use the title. So I tend to put titles in on my images whenever I can, and that way they show up in the website when you go to the individual. It's sort of nice how it, and I believe the different templates will lay these photos out in different ways. But it, it looks at the image and it says, well, I have a big panoramic, it can fill the whole spot, but the verticals and horizontals are set up differently. And then if your person wants to look at individuals, you just have to click it. You can see the title pops up whenever you hover over it. So, so this is a fairly simple site to set up. I mean, it is limited in what you can do, but for just showing your images off, it's something that comes with your Lightroom Photoshop selection. And, oh, there's my X. So that's the basics of that. Anybody? Ken, I sort of covered everything, right, for it? Can you think of anything
Yeah, I think
else?
you can change the size of type and so forth, but yeah, I've got probably a similar template of what you're using. I put a little more page information on it. I gave a page description on my like here, like if you had your yearbook, you could put what your yearbook is about in there under page description.
Oh yeah, yeah, you can do a page description.
So that's what I did for mine. And
yeah. So yeah, and then when you get the site the way you like it, you just have to make sure that you click update the live site, and that will then update the site to adding that new page that I added. And this takes just a little while. I never know why it takes quite as long as it does, because everything is on their site.
It has
But
to go
Adobe
find all the
is-
ones and zeros.
Yeah, yeah. Adobe is the one that's hosting it. So if I want to view it, I can view it here.
Well, it probably takes time to convert all the raw to JPEG.
Yeah. Well, all that stuff is already done because it's all sitting in the cloud as a JPEG, I believe. But here's that Florida one that I brought in. Or here's the yearbook, 2015 yearbook.
Jeff, why don't you show them what the when you sync the photos, where that goes?
Oh, you mean oh, you mean on Lightroom itself?
Yeah.
Okay,
So-
yeah, to sync the photos, you go up to this little cloud icon in Lightroom. Yeah, my sync is paused again. Oh, that's because I just did a whole bunch of stuff. You got to make sure that syncing is active so that it will update, but you still have to, for some reason, reset that in the My Portfolio. I did find I had a customer that had a problem where stuff wasn't updating correctly. First, we found that his syncing had paused like it did here. But there is a way to go into this gear. And if you're having syncing problems, if you hold down the Option key, you can rebuild your sync data. I'm not going to do that because it really takes a long time and it restarts Lightroom and everything. But it does fix a lot of syncing errors if you're getting any. I've got 4 that have been pending for quite a while now. They all seem to be a lot of times iPhone ones. It looks like this one now they're getting caught up, but I think these 4 down here are ones that came from my phone and for some reason are sort of stuck. And I'll probably have to do something with that.
Simple question, if I may. Why do you
Sure.
sync to the cloud?
Well, that's the only way that my portfolio will be able to see
Okay.
the images because it's working from the sync to the cloud.
But you were paused
And-
before, and yet you were still getting images up there.
Yeah, because most of them had already been up there and updated. Because I actually did a rebuild
Okay.
about 2 days ago, which fixed, I have something like 15,000 images in Adobe's cloud. And it fixed a bunch of problems, but it also created 4 that are still stuck.
So the main
Which I
reason
will
you do
probably-
that is so your website can access them.
Right.
Is there any other reason?
Nope. Well, the other reason is with collections that are synced to Adobe's cloud, they're on your phone. You can view them from your phone or from your iPad. So if you want to show these
Oh, okay.
images off, you can show them that way as well.
Okay, if you have
So-
the Adobe app on your phone. Okay.
Right. You need the Adobe Lightroom app on your phone
Yeah.
or
okay,
on
thank
your
you.
iPad.
Thank
Jeff,
you.
why
But-
don't you just right click on a yearbook and show them what the features are there?
I'm not getting what you want.
On your yearbook tab there, if you right click on it,
Okay. Yeah.
go to Lightroom links. Okay, well, evidently it's not
Yeah.
showing you everything because it's still syncing.
Yeah, it's still syncing. But normally you have here with the Lightroom links, you can get the link for this particular one. I might have actually, oh, I know, there's 2 of them here maybe. I wish they would make these arrows a little easier. It could be that I think I have another, like, oh, I've got one where I've done books as actually here. It's the one that I actually had was this yearbook here.
Yeah, now right click on that one once and see what happens.
Yeah.
See, it doesn't show it's syncing though. That collection isn't synced.
Yeah. Yeah, it's almost caught up there. Yeah, I've got some of this stuff I've got in so many different spots. I mean, I've got my books there and I must have it because that had that tiger in it.
Choose any one of those with the arrows on it, Jeff.
Yeah. Oh, here, I know this car ornament one is all set. So here you've got make the collection public, and here I can view it on the web. If I make this collection public, then I can actually copy that link and send it to anybody to be able to look at that link. Or I can just send them right to the website, to that My Portfolio website. So.
I
So
just
you've got
thought
all
that
that
maybe
you can
people want to know about that you can send a copy of a link. If
Right.
anything that you sync on Lightroom in a folder, you can send a link to anybody that you want to share those photos with that they can look at.
Yeah. So that's Adobe's My Portfolio. I'm going to shrink this down. let's see, I don't need that one. I should have. Yeah, that is. Now the other one is the Squarespace site. Tell you, I think I'm gonna go to my site. Now I host or Squarespace has, and I work with 4 different sites right now, and the back end of the website is actually fairly simple. This is my home page. And then I've got a couple of sections, education and my fine art photography. And I know somebody, Clint, I think, wanted to know about that. I use Fine Art America to do it. And the nice part with Fine Art America is you can paste the code in. And if I click the shop artwork, it takes me to my Squarespace site yet, but with all my fine art photos that are for sale. And with Fine Art America, what's really nice is you can do prints, you can do pillows, you can do all sorts of different items. And it's all integrated right into my Squarespace site. So Fine Art America is something that costs about $30 a year. They do all the printing of the different products. They got a couple different companies they work with. They handle the back end with the cart and everything. And when somebody buys something off of the site, I just end up getting a check deposited into my PayPal account, actually. So that works out pretty nice. You can add as many as you want. Fine Art America, I believe, is $30 a year to work with. The only problem I've run into with Fine Art America was shipping to P.O. boxes. Seems they don't like to do that, and caused a little bit of problem. But
well, then you got to bend the pictures and shove them in the box.
Yep. So, but they have coffee mugs. They have, you name it, they've got different items here. I think if you click on this arrow here, what this does basically, it lets you preview your site. And say if I go to, well, let's use this one because I know I set up more stuff with it. But you have the choice of wall art, which is basically prints, canvas print, frame print. You set the price, and then they tell you, here's what it's going to cost and here's your profit. You've got home decor. You can do throw pillows, blankets, towels, all sorts of different weird stuff, bags, stationery. I did a phone case for a while, coffee mugs, and you're setting basically your what your profit would be. So it's a nice way to be able to sell without spending a ton of money. The hardest part is getting people to know you have this stuff. And that's where, taking and promoting your site and doing keyword searches and that really helps.
It's where the SEO really comes in handy.
Right. So you've got all these different settings. Here's your pages setting. So you've got your home page. I have an education page, which if I go to that, it basically has everything that I do in my teaching and how to get a hold of me. I have my different galleries, which if I go to that, you can set up your galleries however you want. If I go, say, to my Florida gallery, You can see all my Florida images. Now you can change and edit this. You go into edit, and if I go into the gallery, I can actually, here is where you would put in your photos. Now the nice part with Squarespace, you can put in as many photos as you want. You can change the design of it. I'm using a grid here, but one of the popular ones that I've used is the slideshow. And if I go to that, and you can then automatically, I hate automatically cropping images, but I do the transition between slides. You can change the timing. You can show the forward and reverse, have thumbnails. You can adjust the distance that they're away. You can actually have titles and descriptions. And when you do the title and description, you can decide if it's, you put your mouse over it, it will show up only then. You can change backgrounds and all that. So if I apply this, now I've changed that setup to this, which automatically goes through. And if I have titles in it, it shows up there. Not all of them do I have titled. And you can advance it faster if you want, just by clicking the advance, or if you want to go back. But it shows up pretty well. Let me edit this again. And with the images themselves, you can edit, and you have, you can actually do adjustments to it if you wanted to. Here on the gear gives you where you can put your title, you can put description in it, you can have a click through to a website or another spot if you wanted to. You can also delete it, save it. I'll just hit cancel. To rearrange, you just drag these photos around. So if I wanted like this photo over here, I just move it over. And then it updates it once I hit apply. Actually, you could tell it was updating it as I go. You can add as many photos, like I said, as you want. When you're finished, you just click apply. And then to save and publish it, you just hit save. And now my site's been updated, and the gallery is now changed to this one over what I had before. You can add as many galleries as you want. Now, the only trick is the template that you decide to start with originally may not allow for different pages inside a master page. So you do have to watch that a little bit when you're picking a template. Otherwise, you can get just your standard pages. And if you want to do, say, a new page, you click add a page. I generally start with a blank page, but if you wanted to do an about page, they have, you know, set pages already laid out. They do have like a calendar for booking stuff. They have an events page. They have their own blog. Here you can actually sell right from Squarespace's site. They use Stripe for the payment collector. But you do need to have their higher tier levels. Here's the gallery that I was using. You can do music as well. I start with a blank page, and then I add more stuff as I need it. So I'll just do a blank page and just call it test. So what you end up getting is basically a blank page, nothing there. You hit edit, and what you'll get is these little plus signs with all the different things that you can add. If you want to do an image, a gallery, You got spacer bars. You can do newsletters, maps, you name it. If I hit a video, that's how I embed the videos. You just get the link from YouTube. You can embed it in the page as you needed. They've got a couple of new things that I haven't played with yet. Reservations for, you pay extra for some of this stuff. You got products. They're also doing a donation page now. I haven't checked in. You do have integrations with Instagram, Twitter, a number of different things. So you got quite a few things that you can create and add to a page. And that's why I like to start with a blank page and add all this stuff rather than starting with, say, a gallery page, which only lets you do a gallery and nothing else. I usually like to add stuff to it. So
most of you may or may not realize. So if you participate in Wacko, the Wacko website is built in this platform as well as the PSA chapter website. So you've seen it on the front end, but now you're kind of seeing how the magic happens on the back end.
Yep. Anybody have any questions? I'm not seeing anything.
I'm just curious. I used Zenfellow for years, and of course I'm about ready to go back in there and update it. I've really neglected it the last couple of years, but that seemed to be a fairly easy one to work with, as far as just displaying your photos. I know they offer all kinds of sales options, which I don't participate in, but anybody else have used Zenfellow before? Or?
Yeah. I use Zenfolio.
I use Zenfolio.
Yeah.
Oh, do you?
I used their other version for a while, SmugMug, which was a different company, but the same basic setup. I looked at Zenfolio and I ended up with SmugMug, and that was a way to host videos because they hosted the videos right on their site, which was what I used them for quite a bit. Then I found Squarespace later on, and it was a little easier to put the videos in because I ended up using YouTube and Vimeo for my videos. So I ended up
between Zenfolio and SmugMug. Zenfolio seems to handle videos a lot more cleaner than SmugMug. I had problems displaying videos on SmugMug.
Yeah. My biggest problem was that they limited the length of videos. Did Zenfolio up how long the videos can be? I think it was like a 15 or 20-minute video was all they would let you do.
I never tried anything that long, so I don't know. Can't say.
And that's where I ended up running into a problem and starting to jump to it was either keeping videos at 15 minutes or less, or going to YouTube and Vimeo and doing that, where my stuff would I could do an hour video if I wanted to, or a series of videos that was a little easier to work with. But
there's no limitation to length on Squarespace on videos. Well,
Squarespace, you're actually putting your video on YouTube.
Oh, okay.
And so YouTube is hosting the video.
Got it.
Understood. And so YouTube doesn't have a limit because we're streaming live, so this will be a 2-hour video that will be on YouTube. For certain videos, I use Vimeo, and that we could get into a whole long discussion between YouTube and Vimeo for hosting videos and that.
Might be a good subject for one of our meetings.
Yeah, it probably would be. I use Vimeo when I want to put in a video that's going to a person. Well, the best example is I had to photograph a funeral for a friend who their mother passed away, who was 90 some years old. And with the music and everything that they played at the service, YouTube would have blocked it. And so Vimeo, I was able to do a personal private link for them that they could pass on to all their friends that couldn't come to the funeral because of COVID. And so far, I believe that video's had something like 150 views. And it's just worked out great for them. They can download the video if they want. YouTube has a few more limitations on the private part, where Vimeo is a little easier to work with. Vimeo does cost $200 and some a month, a year. So,
That's why
we'll get into that one of these days, but we better keep moving here. I've already chewed up more time than I thought. So that's the Squarespace sites. Marty, I'll give you, Marty's going to show a couple of his sites next. Let me stop sharing. And
All right, so we're going to talk about Weebly primarily here, and the kind of the differences. So it works pretty similar to what Jeff was just showing. I've been kind of handed over the reins to the chapter website, and I really didn't know anything about Squarespace prior to starting that, but I'm quickly becoming familiar with it, and it really is a pretty easy program to navigate through once you get used to its nuances. So I'll go back to that. So when you go into Weebly, this is to Weebly.com. This is what you're going to see here. And if you already have a site, you go up to log in. Otherwise, you go up to sign up and get a site going. So I've got like 20 sites on here that I use. So I'm just going to go into my site and play around in that a little bit. So this is kind of the landing page. And one of the things that I do like about Weebly is that they give you some analytics when you go in here. So in the last 7 days, I've had 46 page views, 26 unique visits. What a unique visit is a first-time visitor to my website. And then you can bring it out to 30 days as well, so you can get a little longer time frame on how your site is doing for traffic and all that. Over on the left side, there's a lot of kind of behind the scenes things. If you are doing sales and things like that through the site, all that's over in here. Photo Studio, what that is if you're selling product and you need images of your product, Photo Studio is a service through Weebly that they'll be able to produce good images for you for sale, taking out the backgrounds and giving it basically a good product shot. So to edit site, we're just going to click up on the edit site button. I know we're short on time, so I'm going to kind of probably rush through this a little bit. And probably because we're sharing, it takes a little bit longer than normal. So actually, this is my Junction City, Wisconsin site, not my rodeo site, but that's all right. Same task. So over on the left, you've got all your tools, kind of like Jeff was showing on Squarespace. It just kind of lays them all a little differently. Everything from adding text or titles to images to galleries to slideshows. You can embed, and you can do this with Squarespace as well. You can embed HTML code into a site. One place I use that a lot is when I put maps into a site. I take the HTML code from Google and plant it in there, and it makes it really easy to do. So on pages, this site, I've got quite a few pages on here. If I wanted to add another page, so I went from on the top menus here, you have your build site, which is where we just were, to pages, to the themes. Again, you can change your theme, much like Jeff was showing with the Squarespace, all kinds of them to start with. Again, much like he does, when I start with a theme, I pretty much remove all the templated stuff and just use his build page. It just The themes, the templated stuff is okay, but it does limit you a little bit, and it's actually, to me, harder to work with that with the themes, the templates, than it is to just start with the square or a blank page. So if I wanted to add a page in here, I'm just gonna, you can add the standard blog page category. So again, if you're getting into selling things through here, the categories and products and all that. But let's just take a standard page here. You can name the page and what you want to call it. And then you can see down here, there's just a block area where you can start dragging information. So here you want to go back to your build site and just start dragging items down in here. One of the things I like about it, so I just drag a text block in here. If I want to put an image next to that, I'm just going to drag that. And when I see that little blue line come up, that goes in. And now you can see I've got two sections. So I've got text on my left and an image on my right, and I can reverse them if I wanted to, or whatever it is. So, and then you can just start typing in to your text block. And if you want to put your picture in, you just click on that block and you just go navigate to your files, wherever you want to drag a picture from, grab a picture, and it automatically loads it in there. Voila. Let's say I wanted that picture a little bit bigger. I can just take this gray bar here and drag that to the side, bigger or smaller. You can make sure it fits in. You can grab that. You can do effects along with the picture. So if I wanted to have it so that when you click into the website by showing Lightroom, if you click on that picture, it'll go bigger on your screen to see it better. You can create a link on that picture. You can caption it. And then you can see that ends up underneath the picture, so you can see what it is. You can, if there are more pictures, you can change spacing around it. And under the advanced tab, you can actually put a little border around this picture if you wanted to, and you can do that in gray or black. The other important thing on most websites, and this is something that a lot of people don't realize or get into, is using what's called alt text. So believe it or not, websites are subject to Americans with Disabilities Act rules since 1996. And one of those big important things is to put alt text with your pictures, so that if a handicapped person is searching your website, if there's a reader involved or something like that, that reader then will know that it can read that name of that picture. So if they hover over a picture, it should tell them what that picture is then. It's also good in SEO search to have alt tags on your pictures. So let's say we wanted another section on here. So we got our first section done. We're going to just drag a section box over. It's going to add another section above it. If we didn't want it above it, we can move it down below or to a different page if we wanted. And then we're just going to start the process all over again. We can dump a contact form in here. And then you go in and you edit that, and you can put, all right, where do I want this contact to go? You can turn on Google's CAPTCHA if you want to or not. So those are some of the real basic things. So it's really a very straightforward, real simple drag and drop website builder, and it's one of the reasons that I really enjoy it. And I encourage others to use the program just because it's just so clean and straightforward. Much like Jeff said, YouTube videos. So again, I can add YouTube videos in here. And the way that happens is the videos, again, are living on YouTube, but YouTube will give me a little short snippet of code that I just paste here, and then the magic happens. The video automatically shows up. You can also do slideshows, just like Jeff was saying. So here's one that I've set up. Again, you can see the titles appearing with the pictures as they go. You can do this in different views, much like you could in Squarespace, like Jeff showed. So they're real similar in that respect. this program, I do find, or have found so far, I can do a lot more customizing with things like this box, for instance. I haven't found a way to yet to do that in Squarespace. Maybe there is. So it makes an area kind of stand out a little bit more. So those are just really some of the real basic things. So this is all kind of built from scratch. Like I say, it started as a template. I just deleted all those sections and just started dragging the information in here that I needed. You know, again, I've got little photo galleries set up in here, a couple different ones. And just pages upon pages of information on this website. One of the things that you probably will see more and more on websites are these little accordion areas. And the reason is that because Google rules the world, Google wants websites to be mobile friendly first. In other words, they want a website to look best on a mobile device. And then if it looks good on your computer too, well, so be it. But because if you've ever been on a website on your iPhone or your Samsung or whatever you have, and you go on a website and you're scrolling and you're scrolling and you're scrolling to get to the bottom of the page, well, these little accordions kind of take care of that problem, so you don't have to do it by breaking up information into much more compressed areas, and yet you still have all that same content on the website. So you'll probably see that more and more on websites.
Marty,
yeah.
Cigna's asking, with the free Weebly site, are there ads that appear?
The only ad that appears, that's a great question. The only ad that appears is well, let me do it this way here. It's like simple synchrons. On the free version, this Weebly, powered by Weebly, down in the corner. That's the only ad that's going to be on their free website. One thing it doesn't do, and I had to kind of create my own little footer down here, so to speak, where on other websites, you're going to have more of a dedicated footer, like I have down here. This is kind of built in, or you see that on our chapter or Wacko site. You have a footer built in down there. So that's the one big difference. One more thing I'll point out, this is not through Weebly, but this is actually a service that makes your website more compatible to be ADA compliant. So it's through a organization called Userway, and Jeff, you might want to look at this. What it does is that you get a block of code then that you can put on here, and again, for ADA people, if you have a hard time seeing, it can change contrast on your website without affecting the whole website for others, just for them. If let's say that you have vertigo and you go on a website, they start a website with an active slideshow. Well, they can click here to pause that animation so that it's not affecting them. Make your cursor bigger automatically here. You can change line heights and alignments, give you tool tips, dyslexia friendly, which I find really interesting. So it really just changes the way that the text appears. And so anyway, that's something that more and more you're going to hear more about this. There's already been major corporations sued because their websites are not ADA compliant. And of course, the lawyers are going to go after the money. They're not going to come after, me or the chapter or something like that. There's no money for the lawyers to fight against. But if you're H&R Block or Target, for instance, those companies have been sued because their websites were not ADA compliant. So this block gives you some really basic stuff. The next tier up, they wanted like $50 a month. Well, small businesses, organizations just can't afford that. So I'm doing what I can do, but I'm not going to go crazy with it. So the last thing I'm going to quickly show, because we were talking about sales sites, all members who are PSA members, you get a free subscription, so to speak, to a program called SlickPick. You can find that under member benefits on the PSA website. But you can create a portfolio site and their sales site. So this is the one that I put together using SlickPic just to sell my rodeo pictures. So the nice thing is that, you know, much like Jeff was showing, putting the galleries in it, it works in a similar fashion. But then you can go in here and my customers can go and find a picture, add it to a cart, and then again look at the sales options and purchase that image. What happens on my end is I'll get an email if somebody orders a picture saying, hey, so and so ordered this image. Because of my workflow, I don't put 600 pictures from one rodeo. I don't edit those before I put them up on the sales site. I put them up for the most part the way they come out on my camera, and then when they're ordered, I then color correct and crop and do whatever I got to do based on how they're ordering that picture. The sales are all through Stripe again, so that's the payment process that gets used. But it's just a really good basic portfolio site. And again, if you're a PSA member, this program is free to you. So that's a Cliff Notes version of Weebly. Any questions on Weebly? Hearing none. Jeff, I mean, we can certainly go back into this in another month, and people do have questions and revisit this.
Yeah. No, Weebly's got some nice things that Squarespace sort of has a little more locked in type style that I think you're probably finding out as you work with. There's things that you can't do as much with Squarespace, but yet if you know code, you can fix it that way. But who wants to get into the coding part?
Exactly. And I've actually found the same to be true with Square's website building program. It's probably more akin to what Squarespace is than what Weebly is. So I like the customizability that I can do with this. This little weather icon, for instance, is one of those little HTML things that I put in here that it's just a little block of code, but yet it gives me live time weather.
Yeah, no, and I mean, you can drop blocks of code in for Squarespace, because that's how we do PayPal, and that we get the blocks of code from PayPal, and then it's dropped in where we want it on Squarespace. But yeah, there's some nice features on Weebly that I got to admit, if I would have known about Weebly when we were searching 6 or 7 years ago, I might have gone to Weebly over Squarespace, but hadn't heard about them at that time. So
So I will offer
ton of sites.
If anybody has more questions after we're done today, feel free to let Jeff or I know, and I'm sure we'd be happy to answer any questions you'd have.
Yeah, Weebly looks like more of a general purpose website, whereas some of the others are more, photography oriented, and a lot of the features. I mean, years ago I was trying to help with a WordPress website for our church. I mean, this goes back years and years, and I just found that so complicated. But I think a lot of the stuff we were doing there we could do in Weebly rather nicely.
Yeah, and I think
and
you're
absolutely
right, Brian. Weebly is a good general. That's why I use it for so many. So I've got websites built for, obviously my businesses, but also for, churches, for small construction related businesses, for a lot of like snowmobile clubs and that kind of thing. So it is a very good general use program where things like Zenfolio and SmugMug and those types of programs are designed for photographers, and as is SlickPic, for instance, that's also designed for photographers.
So they all serve a purpose. Squarespace, I know, covers a lot of stuff, and I probably haven't gotten as deep into Squarespace as I should have for fixing things, although there are a lot of ways to do things, but they do it in a roundabout way that makes it a little trickier. But it works for me with all my sites, and I'm happy with it. And I tell you, the only thing you don't want to try to do is switch from one group to another, because it just from one, it's a lot of work.
Right.
Oh
So
yeah, you've
for
really
those of you,
fixed up the chapter site. Nice.
yeah, so those who are familiar with the chapter site, this list used to be quite long on
Yeah.
here, and again, using the accordion feature, we can break those all up really nicely, and now it's just a nice short page. So that's just one example of how using these programs and finding the tools within the program. You know, Jeff, I know you're busy. You've got a lot of things going. You did
Yeah,
a great job
see,
building this site. I'm just going to take it to kind of a different direction. You know.
yeah. No, and I like that. I didn't even know you could do the accordion bit. So I hadn't even gotten that far into it, because I was doing too many sites and just barely was scratching the surface for a lot of it. So
And look, Jeff, we got them side by side.
wow. You'll have to show me how to do that. And you got it at a decent size.
Yeah. So I've been playing in here a little bit, learning it. But anyway, appreciate everybody hanging on and putting up with this. But again, websites, if you are looking for a builder, you know, building program, and have more questions, again, I'm more than happy to answer, and I think Jeff would. If you're looking to hire somebody to build you a website, I'm available for hire to build websites as well.
When do you have time to do that, Marty?
I have over 20 websites that I've built and maintained on a regular basis. So in fact, Omaha Camera Club hired me to build them a website, because they just didn't have anybody in their group that was really technically capable that wanted to deal with it. So they hired me to do it.
Okay, on a final note, I just want to mention that today is the day you can send your winter 2022 photos to me for the newsletter. So if you've got
and that would be
some,
for Menominee Falls Camera Club. So
I'm sorry, for the Menominee Falls Camera Club. I forget where I am once in a while, so please, yes.
And tomorrow we have the PSA chapter meeting for the PSA people. So we have a speaker on tabletop photography in the afternoon. So that should be pretty good too.
All right.
So
you'll be recording that one, right, Jeff?
I think
don't we
so.
record this?
I haven't
Yeah,
heard.
I
I
think so.
haven't gotten permission from the speaker yet to be able to record it or not. So I plan to record it, but if she tells me no, then we're going to end up stopping the YouTube at lunchtime.
Oh.
So
Yeah, I'm not gonna be able to be there, so I was hoping to see it on video. Okay.
I'm hoping she gives us permission to record it on YouTube and be able to display it. I explained to her that it's an unlisted YouTube, that it's just on the website, and that it would be limited to a point on
Okay.
a number of people
Well,
seeing it.
it'll be
So
what it'll be,
hopefully
thank
she'll
you.
say yes. But
Brian, will you be in the meeting in the morning or at all or not?
Probably for a little bit in the morning. I'm just not sure. We got a birthday party starting around noon, so
Okay. Yeah. Well. Yeah.
not
So we're
quite
gonna
sure.
delve into that pull unit program a little bit tomorrow too for tech tips. So that we talked about on Sunday night.
Yeah.
So if you're on there, you can kind of get a glimpse of what that's all about.
That part should be recorded though.
Yeah.
Yeah. One way or another. Thanks, Marty. I'll look for that one way or another. Thank you.
so with that note, that takes care of Digital Forum for this month. So interesting 2 hours here. That went pretty quick. I'm not sure what we're talking about in February. In March, we will be having a guest speaker for the second hour, which I will save for probably we'll announce next month. I got to get a few more things organized with it, but it should be an interesting time. I'm working on a bunch of guest speakers for the next couple months while we're into winter. For everybody, don't forget to sign up for for Jason Odell seminar that Wacko is putting on March 5th. It's $15 right now for a couple hours with Jason Odell. He's going to talk about landscape photography and long exposure photography. So he's a very interesting speaker at a very reasonable price. So we're looking forward to having him in March on the Wacko site. You can, if you go to the Wacko site, it's under programs and you'll see the information there. Plus, I think almost everybody's probably gotten an email on it. So please sign up for that as soon as you can. It helps us if you sign up sooner rather than later. So that's it. Well, I thank everybody for coming. We had a good number of people here, and we'll see you next month.
Nice job, guys.
Take
Thank
care.
you.
Thanks, everybody. Jeff, I'll